Hello and welcome. Tonight, another life lost, 19 others abducted in separate attacks on 3 communities in Niger State. We're making progress. Kidnappers have made contact and negotiation ongoing. Reassuring words from Katsina State Governor Aminu Mazari as he briefs President Muhammadu Buhari on efforts to rescue kidnapped Kankara school students. Chief Justice of Nigeria warns senior lawyers, says disobedience to court orders will no longer be tolerated, asks government to protect rights of citizens. And U.S. government is prioritizing frontliners as it begins mass vaccination of health workers against coronavirus. Plus, we'll have business, sports, and later on international news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Nigerian Ports Authority says more than 1 billion naira lost to vandalism of its facility in the recent NSAS protest.
Sports news tonight, Barcelona versus Paris, Atletico versus Chelsea are among the pick of the UEFA Champions League round of 16 ties after the draw was made earlier today in Switzerland.
Security remains a major concern for most Nigerians today, and the reason is not far-fetched. Events of the past few days have brought back feelings of anxiety and insecurity, the most recent being the abduction of over 400 students of government secondary school in Kankara, Katsina State. Now here's what we know so far. Today, Governor Aminu Mazari gave what may be described as a ray of hope when he announced that the abductors have made contact with his administration. The governor disclosed this when he met with President Muhammadu Buhari in Daura. And while efforts are being made to rescue the students, several groups have continued to condemn the abductions. One of such is a coalition of northern groups, which had its meeting disrupted in Kaduna today by suspected hoodlums. And it's not just local groups that have condemned the attacks. International bodies are not left out. The United Nations and the United Nations Children's Fund are not just calling for the release of the students, they're demanding a firm action against the perpetrators. And while the country is anxiously waiting for some sort of good news about the Kankara students, another attack in Niger State, which left a cleric dead and 19 others abducted, came to light just a few hours ago. And it's on that note that we begin the news tonight. Now, while the dust raised by the kidnap of the Kankara students is still raging, attention shifted slightly to Niger State today after gunmen suspected to be kidnappers killed in a clergyman and abducted 19 persons in different attacks in Ogun, Chokuba, and Tegina communities. Our correspondent, Empress Simon, reports.
On Sunday morning, gunmen were said to have attacked Ogun community, a settlement just a few kilometers away from Kankara, the headquarters of Rafi local government area, where they abducted 6 persons after shooting sporadically into the air. At about 12:30 a.m. on Monday, the gunmen also attacked Rafin Doki, a settlement around Tegina in the same local government area, where they abducted 13 persons, 3 women and 10 men, bringing a total of 19 persons that were abducted by the attackers. The police are yet to speak to us on the latest attacks. We have also received report of a pastor belonging to the Evangelical Church of West Africa, ECWA, who was attacked at Chukuba village in Shiro local government area and was killed by the attackers. That is in addition to 6 other missionaries that were said to have been kidnapped by gunmen, alongside a woman who was reported to be a wife to one of the missionaries. We know that Niger State is currently experiencing serious security threats. But what we also have gathered is the fact that the state government is not resting on its oars to restore peace and order in the state. From Niger State, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, there appears to be a ray of hope on the horizon for the rescue of the abducted students of the government Science Secondary School, Kankara in Katsina State. As the state governor, Aminu Mazari, says contact has been made with the abductors and discussions are currently ongoing to ensure their safe return. The governor disclosed this when he met with President Muhammadu Buhari in Daura today to brief him on efforts made so far to rescue the children. In our next report, our correspondent Oreoluwa Shonibare gives an update on the efforts to rescue the students.
What President Muhammadu Buhari had in mind was a week to relax at home in Daura. But it seemed there was a party lying in wait to disrupt his vacation. The entire state of Katsina has been thrown into confusion following the abduction of over 300 students from government secondary school in Kankara on December 11th. The criticism by the coalition of northern groups over the federal government's security strategies did not go down well with certain parties, as its latest meeting in Kaduna was violently interrupted by hoodlums. Adding voice to denounce the kidnap are the United Nations and UNICEF. In a stern statement, the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, expressed deep concern and called on the federal government to ensure the immediate release of the students and others abducted. It's difficult not to remember the Chibok abduction of 2014, an incident that dragged for some time. The federal government will certainly not want a repeat of that, especially when promises were made that such would never happen again. Oreoluwa Shonibare, Channels Television News.
Well, hoodlums suspected to be hired thugs earlier today disrupted a planned conference organized by the coalition of northern groups over the rising insecurity in the region. The hoodlums invaded the popular Arewa House, venue of the press conference, a few minutes before the takeoff time and attacked the organizers of the security conference. The hoodlums also destroyed chairs, tables, and smashed windscreens of vehicles parked within the premises of the event. The national coordinator of the groups, Balarabe Rufai, describes them as enemies of the North, vowing that no amount of attack or threat will stop them from speaking out against the rising security challenges in the region.
The gathering is specifically to address the insecurity in the north. We have decided to give the whole day to sit down and discuss and review the security situation in the north in order to complement the government effort of what they are doing. But unfortunately, as you can witness, before we even have started the event, some hoodlums came in with their machetes and all other weapons that we don't even see, attacking people. Some people had to go through the windows to escape. So we are very, very confused about what actually transpired. But alhamdulillah, we have seen some known faces. We are going to take this up. And I want to assure the public, this noble objective we have of reviewing the security situation of northern Nigeria, where our people are being killed on daily basis. As you know, as we are talking just 2 days ago, about 400 students were kidnapped in Katsina State. We cannot fold our arms and let things continue going like this. Whoever is behind this attack is an enemy of the North, is an enemy of Nigeria. What we have intended to do is, how do we complement the government and bring up synergy and a security outfit that is multi-sectoral, where all people will come in and have what we intend to call Arewa Security Marshal.
Let's get more insights into this security challenge. I'm now being joined live from Abuja by a former commander of the military special task force Operation Safe Haven. He's also a security consultant, Major General Henry Ayola. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you, Joma.
One would have thought that after Chibok and then we had Dakchi, that the government would have fortified areas where schools exist. Why aren't we seeing that?
Well, I think it's obvious that the security forces, the armed forces and the other paramilitary agencies are already overstretched. I mean, that goes without saying. There is no armed forces anywhere in the world that can engage concurrently several fronts, sustainably. So it calls for an all-stakeholder approach to solve the problem beyond all of government approach. That's what I would say for now.
Well, we've heard the words of assurances coming from the governor, from security agencies, at least in this particular instance, about contact with the abductors and the location, perhaps, of the missing children. For parents who are watching us tonight who are worried, do you think that's allaying their fears?
Yeah, I think that's a good assurance from the government. Just like we had the news of the meeting in Kaduna, the clarion call now is for all stakeholders to come on board, to augment the efforts of the government, and for everyone to play the role it can play in its own capacity to make the security architecture work better and be in the position to preempt some of these things. I think that's the right way to go.
Why has it not worked, in your view? We all talk about it, let it work better. Why do we continue to see this breakdown, and then you have minors, children, constantly being at the receiving end of this?
Well, I think we all need to put our hands on deck to do the necessary intelligence analysis to identify the main and root causes of these attacks. I mean, it's not the Katsina one is just one case. It goes beyond the usual. There is no way, we cannot say it's circumstantial, really. It's beyond being circumstantial. Perhaps there are conspiracies, there are connivances, whatever they are, it is the work of the intelligence community to put in their bets, put on their thinking caps and come out with some result that will be the premise for subsequent actions.
Apart from the kidnap of the students, there have been a series of attacks in, different parts within the north, and the country. Today in Niger, we heard about the cleric being killed, 19 others abducted. You mentioned the security agencies being overwhelmed. If they are, what do you think the solution should be?
Okay. I like to say, I'm very close to most of the security heads. And if there are operational and military strategic advices that I have and strategies, I'd rather deal with them directly on that. But permit me to say a few things that got to do with the political strategic level matters that can be done to help the military deliver better, help the other security agencies to be in a position to tackle these challenges better. And that cannot be overemphasized, that there is need to increase capacity, to increase equipment, funding. In fact, the whole nation must be prepared to do a priority spending on the security sector. And whatever sacrifice we have to make, we all have to accept that sacrifice. The alternative is not to be contemplated at all.
All right. Former commander of the Military Special Task Force, Operation Safe Haven, Major General Henry Ayola, thanks for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Thank you, viewers.
And in part two, after the break, police rescue 11 from illegal baby-making factory in Ogun State, arraign 51-year-old mother for operating the facility. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. Reminder of our top stories. Another life lost, 19 others abducted in separate attacks on 3 communities in Niger State. We're making progress. Kidnappers have been made contact and negotiation ongoing. Reassuring words from Katsina State Governor Aminu Masari as he briefs President Muhammadu Buhari on efforts to rescue kidnapped Kankara school students. Chief Justice of Nigeria warns senior lawyers, says disobedience to court orders will no longer be tolerated, asks government to protect rights of citizens. And U.S. government is prioritizing frontliners as it begins mass vaccination of health workers against coronavirus. More reactions continue to trail the Kankara school abduction, this time from Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka, who describes the incident as a slap across the face of the commander-in-chief, saying he is not in charge of the government. In the words of Professor Soyinka, if only this latest outrage were a personal contest of slights between insurgency and power, alas, its resonance is felt far beyond. It's merely the latest in the serial stringing slaps across the face of the nation, and it draws blood from every sensing citizen. Over 5 years since Chibok, we have yet to anticipate and to guard against a repeat. We continue to hand over innocent wards cheaply en masse to the agents of darkness and despair. He adds that when the president was summoned by the National Assembly to appear before it amid the rising insecurity in the country, he didn't initially consider the summons as below the standard of behavior, but rather responded to the invitation to rub minds urgently over a people's security anxieties as one who still struggled to preserve the tattered remains of his born-again democratic camouflage. The Sultan of Sokoto and co-chairman of the National Council of Traditional Rulers, Sa'ad Abubakar III, has asked the military to occupy Sambisa Forest and the Lake Chad region housing Boko Haram insurgents. Speaking while leading other top monarchs to Maiduguri to condole with the government and people of Borno State on the recent killing of farmers by Boko Haram in Zambabari, the Sultan says they were not only in Maiduguri to commiserate with the governor, but to make a strong statement with regards to the insecurity affecting the entire nation. According to him, we decided to come together as the Council of Traditional Rulers to make this statement to all and sundry, not only to the governor of Borno State, but to all our governors. Let's rise up to the occasion and see how we can come together to fight this menace of shedding innocent people's blood. He adds that so many lives have been lost in the past, making it look like the new normal. Our police authorities in Ogun State have arrested a 51-year-old mother of 9 from Abia State for allegedly running a baby factory around the Ofada area of the state. The suspect, Ogunaya Florence, was arrested in her hideout after about 11 of her victims were rescued by the police. She, however, denied the allegation of running an illegal baby factory, saying she was duly registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. But the police are insisting on arraigning the suspect to face the consequences of her action. President Muhammadu Buhari is giving the assurance that his government will continue to invest and empower youths, considering the fast-growing young dynamic population, which is a threat to stability if not properly harnessed. The president made the comments at the graduation of Senior Executive Course 42 of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in Kuru, Plateau State. He also called for stronger collaboration between the public and private sectors in exploring investment opportunities.
Thank you very much.
77 participants from the armed forces, paramilitary, federal and state civil services, among others, gathered at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies for the Senior Executive Course 42 graduation ceremony. For the past 11 months, their study focused on the challenges of population growth and human capital development. One after the other, they file out to collect their certificates.
Aleto Anthony, so of rehabilitation of these sports complex.
President Muhammadu Buhari, in his address presented by Plateau State Governor, promises to implement the recommendations, even as the government will not relent in investing in youths.
As custodians of the social order, we cannot fail to realize that a fast-growing, young and dynamic population that feels alienated and disempowered is a threat to stability. This is why this administration has set its sights on lifting 100 million people out of poverty over the next decade. This calls for expansion of access to opportunity and investment in human capital development on a large scale that is unprecedented in our history.
Last year, where we worked with the Senior Executive Course 41, we saw some of those policies translate into actionable steps that we are now seeing in the National Health Insurance Act and even the amendment of the National Health Act. We hope that this year, some of the input that we provided for the Senior Executive Course 42 will translate into actionable policies moving forward.
Some of the participants shared their perspectives on necessary options in managing the nation's population growth and human capital development.
The National Population Commission said we are now 206, and we're expected to be the third largest population in the world by 2050. So if we do not plan for all this, then there's going to be a big problem. So that's what we've been able to conceptualize and are giving to Mr. President. And I think he said that we try to adopt some of the recommendation, and the other ones will be useful for planning.
With the increasing population growth, government may need to find ways to harness the recommendations so as to achieve national development aspirations.
The family of a suspect who died in police custody has accused a senior police officer of unduly detaining their relation for refusal to give him a bribe of 3 million naira when he was arrested. The brother of the victim, who is testifying before the Human Rights Investigative Panel on the activities of the police in Abuja, said the police denied the suspect access to members of his family.
After a week of recess, the Human Rights Investigative Panel of Inquiry into activities of the police resumes sitting in Abuja, the nation's capital. 4 cases are slated for hearing, ranging from unlawful arrest, detention, abuse of office, and enforced disappearance. A particular case, however, caught the attention of many, and that is the alleged unlawful arrest and disappearance of a suspect, Edward Lira. The cross-examination of Edward's brother, Confidence, could not go on as the counsel to the second defendant, Gabriel Opata, asked for time to study the documents. Speaking to journalists, the Assistant Superintendent of Police in charge of Intelligence Response Unit, David Abu, said Edward was an armed robber who was caught during an operation but sadly died in their custody.
We got credible intelligence that the rifles, they were going to attack Konobowe with the rifle. Then we started firing from all over the place. Firing was too much. We had to dive down. Then because 2 of them handcuffed them, we used one handcuff to handcuff them, they started running. I called my commander immediately, Super SP Martins, that look, we are under attack. So after about 10-15 minutes, I started hearing groaning. One of my boys crawl. And we discovered that they were hit with bullets. We rushed them, I called my commander, we rushed them to General Hospital Bori. They say they cannot handle it. And we rushed them to UPTH on that same 20th of June, 2020. And they were confirmed dead.
The family refutes the claim. They accuse the ASP of demanding a 3 million naira bribe from the deceased.
For no time, my brother has gone for armed robbery. First arrest was on the 30th of July in the convoy of executive chairman on the way coming from Bori. All through this process, my brother is under detention. From 2nd of November 2019, my brother was arrested first. They started withdrawing money from my brother's account. They withdraw money from my brother's account from 2nd of November 2019 down to 6th of October 2020 because they are with my brother 18.
The allegation was also refuted by the ASP.
There was never a time. Who would I demand for fellow policemen that were killed?
Are you with his ATM card?
He was not even arrested with the ATM card.
Are you with his ATM card?
I'm not with his ATM card.
The family insists that he is not telling the truth and displayed evidence.
We also have evidence of also payment made from Confidence Zenith Bank account into Davis Ames account. So why did he release somebody who you are claiming is an armed robber? Why did you release somebody on bail who you claim he shot police officers?
The chairman of the panel, Justice Suleiman Galadima, adjourned the case to 11th January 2020 for cross-examination.
When the news at 10 returns, Nigerian Ports Authority says it lost more than 1 billion naira to vandalism of its facility in the recent EndSARS protests. That's on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Muhammad, is warning against disobedience to court orders as he insists that obedience to lawful court orders has no alternative in any sane society. The Chief Justice, who was represented by Justice Olabode Rhodes-Viver, made the comments at the opening of the 2020-2021 legal year and conferment of the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria on 72 lawyers in Abuja. To politics, where 21 newly elected local government chairmen who won the just concluded election in Kogi State have been sworn in an elaborate event held at the state capital. Governor Yahya Bello seized the opportunity to encourage youths across the country to join partisan politics as a means of participating in governance and decision-making.
The Commissioner of Transportation.
The Township Stadium in Lokoja, the Kogi State capital, is the venue of the well-attended event. A third tier of government is crucial to grassroots administration, and that explains the importance of this event.
Never in the history of Kogi State and Nigeria as a whole has women been given a pride of place in governance as been done by His Excellency. Today, and by this election, which produced vice chairperson for the 21 local government and women councillors, His Excellency has surpassed the 35% affirmation for women, which no other state in the country has been able to attain. In 1987, we had a local government election that fell on the 12th of December of that year. So when this one was supposed to be on the 12th of December again, some of our people came and said I should please appeal to the governor to change the date. We were afraid of the 12-12, but we thank God, 12-12 came and left, and there was no incident.
Do solemnly swear.
The business of the day gets underway as the elected chairman and vice chairman are sworn in.
So help me God. Congratulations.
Governor Yahya Bello speaks of his expectations of the local government officials.
My dear brand new firebrand chairmen, chairpersons, and councillors, you cannot afford to let loose 1 inch of your territory. You cannot afford to cede, to give space, to give chance to any criminal in any land or any space of your territory.
The All Progressives Congress APC won all 21 chairmanship and 239 councillorship positions in an election the party says reaffirms its strong base in the state.
Against the backdrop of the nation's economy slipping into a second recession in about 5 years, many Nigerians have been expressing concern on how the country got to this point. One of them is the chairman of Troika Holdings, Mr. Biodun Shobanjo, who is speaking on how economic opportunities for Nigerians venturing into business has shrunk significantly over the last 40 years. The leading marketing communications expert expressed his thoughts in a biography titled The Will to Win and shared with Channels Television in an interview.
To be honest, at the time that I ventured out to do the things that we did, if the environment wasn't conducive, there's no way we would have achieved it. I have always held the view that the responsibility of government is to create an enabling environment where people can thrive. All right? And even though in 1980, when I set out, the economy was in some kind of a turmoil, you could still do things. All right? There was safety, for example. There wasn't any fear. We had clients in Ibadan. We would, my executive who was going up and down, he had a car, he had 3 tires. He couldn't afford to buy a 4th tire. He would go with public transport, go and come back, same day. And I'm talking of Jimmy Awishika here. You know, life was reasonably comfortable. And that's what people are agitating for right now. So when you see how we have come, and you see the way things seem to be dropping, you worry. You worry. I mean, the Nigeria of 1980, you even look at the strength of the Naira opposite that of the United States dollar. You take comparisons from 1980 to now, see where we are. Why do these things happen to us? Why are we not able to manage ourselves properly?
For more on that and the review of the biography, watch out for the full interview on our show, Channels Book Club, at the various times displayed on your screen right now. Let's take a look at some business news now. Here's Melinda Akinlami.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Many thanks, Ijoma. Welcome to Business News. 1 billion naira was lost to vandalism of facilities at the Nigerian Ports Authority during the NSAS protest, and that's according to its managing director, Hadiza Bala Usman. She made this known today during the 2021 budget defense session of the Port Authority before the Senate Committee on Marine Transport. She explained that apart from burnt buildings and vehicles, other working tools, including over 300 office equipment, were also looted. The NPA boss mentioned that 807 million naira has been set aside for the rehabilitation of the burnt portion of the building, while the cost of replacing all the damaged items will be above 1 billion naira. The total value of capital importation into Nigeria increased by 12.86% to $1.46 million in the third quarter of this year, and that's according to the latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics. That amount represents a 74.03% decline when compared to the value recorded within the same period last year. The largest amount of capital importation was received through other investment, which attracted $639.44 million. Next is foreign direct investment, which accounted for $414.79 million. And in third place is portfolio investment, which contributed $407.25 million of total capital inflow. The United Kingdom emerged as the top source of capital investment inflow with $594.65 million, while Lagos State was the top destination of capital investment with $1.2 million within that period. With 26 gainers and 14 losers, the local equities market kicks off the third trading week of December with a significant rebound from the turndown which dominated the entire 5 trading sessions last week. Let's get more details from Chimeze. Thanks, Mel. Yes, the bull resurfaced after last week's bearish trading thanks to Dangote Cement and Airtel Africa. You would recall Dangote Cement has been on the downwards trend and now investors feel it has dropped enough, and so we saw a lot of bargain hunting on that stock. Airtel Africa, of course, has been gaining and today is no different. That stock gained by a whopping 10%. The all-share index was up by almost 2%. Despite the gains we saw today, it's important to note that investors are still very cautious. Look at the sector chart. Industrial and insurance were the only sectors up, others were in the red. Activity is picking up though. Volume was a little over 208 million shares, worth about 4 billion naira in 4,154 deals. When I spoke to a trader about the outlook of the market going into the new week, he was very optimistic the market will not see much of a fall this week. He believes that because there's now a bit of clarity in the fixed income market about the CBN special bill, which was offered last week at 0.5%, interest will still remain in the equities market as investors seek better returns on their investment. And don't forget, there's also expectations for dividend payout at the end of the year. So it's all looking good. But with the dynamism in the market, we can only hope for the best. Back to you, Mel.
Indeed, thanks, Melinda. Still ahead on the news at 10, U.S. places frontliners first, begins mass vaccination of health workers against coronavirus. And more from our London studio in Around the World in 5. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Residents of Yenagoa in Bayelsa State can now sleep with both eyes shut during the festive season, following the successful arrest of some alleged criminals disturbing the peace in Yenagoa by officers of the Bayelsa State Police Command. The Commissioner of Police in Bayelsa State, Mike Okole, during a media briefing, outlined a number of successful arrests that have been made in order to curb the rising spate of crime in the state capital. The Commissioner also gave the residents of the state the assuredness of their preparedness. Now, the U.S. has begun rolling out mass vaccinations of the Pfizer-BioNTech jab, with intensive care unit nurse Sandra Lindsay the first to receive the vaccine. And this comes as the number of COVID-19 deaths in the United States inches closer to 300,000. Meanwhile, the U.S. Electoral College has been voting to affirm Joe Biden as president-elect and Kamala Harris as vice president-elect. Here's Simon Pusey with more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US is beginning the massive task of rolling out their COVID-19 vaccine, with first doses distributed to dozens of locations. The Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine is being sent out to distribution centres across the country, marking the start of the biggest inoculation programme in the country's history. The US is the worst affected country in the world, with close to 300,000 deaths from the virus. The government is aiming to vaccinate about 3/4 of its population within the next 5 to 6 months. Russian hackers have allegedly broken into US federal agency networks, including the Treasury and Commerce departments. Officials said that hackers, likely acting on behalf of a Russian intelligence agency, breached the email systems at the Treasury and Commerce departments in what is considered one of the largest hacks in more than 5 years. The Trump administration is trying to determine if other parts of the government have been affected. The US has officially removed Sudan from its state sponsors of terror list. The move is part of a deal that involved Sudan paying $335 million to US victims of al-Qaeda's 1998 bombing of the US embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, in which more than 220 people died. The country was put on the list in 1993, when Sudan was used as a base for a number of Islamist militant groups, as well as al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden.
Have agreed to make peace. This is for many, many years they've been at odds, to put it nicely, and to normalize their relations. This will be the third country where we're doing this.
The Prime Minister of Eswatini has died 4 weeks after testing positive for COVID-19. Ambrose Dlamini died while under medical care in a hospital in South Africa, where he was moved on December the 1st. The 52-year-old was appointed Prime Minister in November 2018, following his position as the Chief Executive Officer of a telecoms company, MTN Eswatini. Indian farmers have begun a day-long hunger strike to protest against a set of new farm laws recently passed by the government. For weeks, farmers have protested in New Delhi and cities across the world, blocking roads and highways to pressure Narendra Modi's government into withdrawing the new regulations. The laws will allow farmers to sell their produce to private buyers. Farmers have said that the laws threaten their livelihoods and will only benefit big corporations. Byron Bay's famous beach has all but disappeared as extreme weather batters Australia's east coast. Main Beach, a popular tourist destination, had already been depleted due to previous erosions, but the local mayor said severe weather and massive swells were smashing what was left. More than 2,000 homes in cities including Brisbane and the Gold Coast lost electricity on Monday after strong winds struck power lines. Europe's most active volcano, Italy's Mount Etna, has erupted in the early hours of Monday morning. Italy's National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology said that there were 2 eruptive fissures on the southeastern crater of the volcano. The ashes from the eruption have covered cars, streets and balconies in the nearby Catalan villages. And finally, Estonians have set a new world record for the largest winter swimming relay. Participants braved cold waters of the Baltic Sea, where the water temperature was around 4 degrees Celsius. The event was hosted at the former Imperial Russia's submarine shipyard in an open water pool where 505 people took part in the challenge, which lasted for nearly 5 hours and covered a total distance of 12.5 kilometres. Swimmers later relaxed in a hot tub and a mobile sauna. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. The International Cricket Council, the ICC, has confirmed Nigeria's cricket women's team will jostle for a spot at the 2023 ICC Women's T20 World Cup to be hosted by South Africa. Nigeria's women's team, currently ranked 41st in the world, has been drawn alongside Botswana, Cameroon, Namibia, Malawi, Mozambique, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, Uganda and Zimbabwe in one of the qualifiers to be hosted by Botswana and scheduled for October 2021. One of FC Barcelona and PSG will not make it past the last 16 of the UEFA Champions League after both were drawn to face each other in the first knockout stage of the tournament. Other fixtures see Borussia Mönchengladbach take on Manchester City, Lazio will take on Bayern Munich, Spanish side Atletico Madrid versus English side Chelsea, Jurgen Klopp returns to Germany to face RB Leipzig, Porto versus Juventus, Sevilla versus Dortmund, and Atalanta takes on Real Madrid. The ties will take place over 2 legs, with seeded group winners playing away in the first legs and at home in the return games. Liverpool club ambassador Ian Rush has warned the former champions to be wary of an attack-minded Leipzig side who ended the hopes of Man United in the group phase. Leipzig will host Liverpool in the first leg on February the 16th, 2021, and the return leg on March the 10th. And that's sports news.
Thanks, Ayotunde. And the main news again. Another life has been lost in Niger State after a cleric was killed by unknown gunmen. 19 other persons were also abducted in separate attacks on 3 communities in the state. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Bonyato. You have a good night.